Hello, everyone. A little bit of story time. I thought I'd share with you the story of how I ended up at the Woodstock Fruit Festival in 2011 and ended up going back there many times. And obviously, that led to me organising the UK Fruit Festival to this day, which is happening this year. And there's still some places left. I'll maybe put a link below if you want to join our waiting list for the last tickets. So, I was writing this out today because I sent it out in an email, but I remember leaving New York 2011 around about August, early September, late August, leaving New York with my then girlfriend at the time, and we'd been on a holiday there. She had family in Philadelphia. We went to visit them, and then, pardon me, and then we went to New York, and she was super excited to go to New York. And when we were getting the bus into New York, she was like really excited. And we spent less than a week there, maybe 4 or 5 days. We did all the tourist stuff. We went to Broadway shows. We went to a jazz club. Of like I can't even remember going to restaurants, but I imagine we went to restaurants, Times Square, Central Park, Empire State Building, all the classic, well, a lot of the classic tourist kind of things in New York. And I enjoyed it. And we were leaving to go home. And she said, "Do you think you'll ever go back?" And I said, "No." Or I said, "Well, I'm not in any rush to go back, but maybe if there's a reason to go back, maybe one day I will go back." And funnily enough, I ended up going back to New York for the next 10 years, basically every single year for the next 10 years. And pardon me, sorry about coughing so much. And obviously the reason for that was going to the Woodstock Fruit Festival. Pardon me. So when I came home, sorry, I'm coughing. That's it cleared. Sorry about that. So when I came home from Woodstock, no, not Woodstock. When I came home from New York, there was like a little bit of a shift going on for me. And even when I was in New York, like there was weird stuff going on. I was kind of going into little, I don't know if you call it meditations or little trance moments, going out into a trance a little bit. And I've been doing that for kind of a while. I've been going to this spiritual group and been doing meditation there and stuff. And I changed my diet as a result of that class, and was kind of on a path of change, I suppose. And I came home, and it wasn't long after coming home that my friend Patricia put up a video about veganism. Well, put up the video Earthlings, and she posted it, and I thought, I'm ready to watch that. I had been a vegetarian for a year, but I'd been moving away from animal products, from the dairy and eggs. And it was just small reasons, like when you eat eggs and then you go to the toilet, this kind of smell of eggs comes out. And I kind of, that grossed me out a little bit. I was just like, oh, I don't like that. And having milk, it just clogs you up a little bit. And I just started to, I'd noticed that for years, but I started to actually think, okay, I'm going to kind of move away from that. So I was moving away from that kind of as a natural process. So when she put up Earthlings, I thought I was ready for that. And I'd known that she was a vegan, I think, and I knew Patricia because she put on an event with a friend, or a friend had invited us along, and she had brought over like Native Americans to come and do kind of circle sessions and things like that. And this Native American man came over, and we joined this circle one night, and it was really cool. So I knew Patricia through that, and I was vaguely aware that she was a vegan and her boyfriend was. So I saw that, and I watched Earthlings, and I thought, I'm ready to go vegan. This is it's time for me to go vegan. And the funny thing was, my brother had been vegan at one point. I had a friend from my Aikido class who was vegan. Patricia was vegan. Her boyfriend was vegan. I didn't know as well. Um, I knew a musician guy. I knew maybe a couple of musician guys that were vegan, and I didn't reach out to any of them. It's funny that, but I didn't reach out to any of them and go, "Hey, I'm ready to go vegan. What should I do? How should I do this?" I didn't do that. I went to YouTube, and I assumed that being vegan was kind of like less healthy and that you had to do it in some special way and maybe take supplements I didn't know. And I was maybe typing in uh, how to get protein on a vegan diet, typical things. I was the exact same typical uneducated person as anyone else. And I was a vegetarian and I was thinking things like that. So I wasn't very educated. I just kind of thought, well, there's a lot of people who are vegetarian, so it must be okay. That's the way I didn't really look into it much. So I typed that into YouTube, and I came across the protein myth video, which you can still find to this day, and it's Tim Van Orden. He's talking at some event, and he's saying that he's an athlete. There's a couple of things that sparked my interest. He said he ate just fruits and vegetables, and yet he was still building muscle, and he wasn't even training. And that was interesting to me. It's like he's building muscle without even training, and he's eating fruit and vegetables. Now, I think there's more to it than that. Like um, in reality, Tim has a particular type of genetics, and he puts on muscle quite easily. So it's not as simple as it was all fruit, but that triggered me, and I made that connection of, well, chimpanzees and gorilla, like, these are all stronger than us, and yet they just kind of eat fruit and vegetables and leaves. So that triggered me, and I was thinking about the Spider-Man film. I don't know, or one of these films where the Spider-Man character gets like injected by a tarantula or something, or whatever happens, and the next day he wakes up and like his physique's totally changed. He's like a superhuman, right? He's like six pack and everything's changed. And I was and that I wonder, like, maybe if you eat fruit, maybe you get this like unbelievable like chimpanzee strength or something. So I was fascinated by that idea. Um, and he talked about the amino acids, and he talked about and also it just made sense from like survival. I was interested in survival and how human beings fit in the world. I was always asking questions. How do we fit in this world? Didn't make sense to me that, we're the only animal that cooks food, the only animal that heats our homes, the only animal that has this very complicated environment. It didn't make sense, and it was always like kind of annoying to me a little bit. Like, why do we have to have such a complicated, difficult life and have so much hard work and all this? Maybe that was out of a little bit of laziness. I was trying to get out of get out of all that. But that was the way I was looking at it. So I watched that video. That really inspired me, and I thought, I guess that was my first step. Now, I don't think I went raw straight away at all, but at some point very close after that, I decided to maybe try a day of nothing but raw. I'd also done a few fasts, by the way, before that. Randomly, I'd done maybe a day of fasting or whatever. Never longer than that, but like a day or whatever. And I'd felt like really good energy and stuff. So at some point, I remember saying to people I worked with, I'm going to go raw for a week. That was my challenge. And I failed at that. And I didn't know anything about going raw. I was asking myself questions about it. I was watching more content about it, watching more of Tim. I think I came across some David Wolf stuff at the time. And I was, trying to figure out how to do a raw diet, Um, and it seemed kind of, I just thought, well, just eat raw, just eat anything as long as it's raw. So I literally had, and I was not in the frame of mind of eating a lot of fruit. So I ate fruit because I cut out sugar many years before that. So I ate more fruit than the average person, but I didn't eat like tons of fruit. So I was eating fruit and then maybe have a fruit salad or whatever. And then I went to the supermarket and I was looking for like vegetables. So I got broccoli, cauliflower, stuff like that, like from a packet, like packets of raw vegetables, and was eating that for lunch. And I was just imagining myself like a gorilla, like crunching it all and like, yeah, this is right. This feels good or whatever. And sometimes didn't feel that good. But I always found like after a couple of days or after a short period of time, kind of crash. And I would feel great at first. I felt fantastic. I felt this difference. And then I just kind of would crash. And I remember going for a hill walk with friends, and we went walking, and I was all good. But I think maybe the next day or the day after, like I went for a run, and I just crashed out on the run, and just didn't have any energy. And that was the delusion as well. That like, well, I'm gonna go raw, and all of a sudden I'm gonna be an athlete straight away. Like that was what I was kind of trying to test out a little bit. And that was silly. Like you need to train and it takes time for your body to develop. And you can't just become a runner straight away or become a long distance cyclist straight away. That takes time. And I was kind of pushing that a little bit. I also noticed when I was doing certain meditations, I was very clear. Mind was just very clear, very stable, and so I felt these benefits of going raw, and I was kind of hooked at that point. But I was still quite cautious. I didn't jump right into the world of the raw vegan diet. I didn't, you know, go too deeply into it. But I started to like. I saw there was forums. There was obviously YouTube channels. I eventually came across Harley. I remember I didn't. I never subscribed to YouTube channels, and I was that kind of guy that like I was didn't probably didn't like giving my information or didn't like signing up for things or was kind of worried I was getting pressured into something here. So I didn't join the forums. I was just lurking on all these things for ages and kind of gradually got into it. And I found Harley Durian Riders videos quite soon as well. And he had a video called "Why is David Wolf Fat and Sick?" or something like that, or "Why is David Wolf Fat?" And I watched that, and Harley was just at that point such an attractive figure on a number of levels, and such a clear voice and a clear message. And unlike Tim, who was kind of a little bit vaguer in his information on how to eat a raw diet, and didn't actually have a lot of information on how to eat a raw diet, and like many raw food speakers, doesn't like talking about the diet. And Tim at Woodstock, I don't think he ever spoke about the diet or how he eats the diet. So that's raw food speakers for you. I don't know if I've made that video or put that up yet, but raw food speakers never like talking about how they eat a raw food diet. I don't know why. And so Harley came across Harley. His inform he was such a is it was like a 20-minute video. His communication was very, very clear. It was attractive message because he was pointing out this kind of slightly conspiracy message. All these people in the raw food world, they're trying to get your credit card, they're trying to get you to spend all this money on all these superfoods, which at the time was a bigger thing. And I don't know, that might actually still be a thing now in the raw food movement. I'm not sure, but Obviously, there's people that maybe sell herbs or whatever, but at the time, you could go to some of these websites. David Wolf, I mean, David Wolf's website still has some of that stuff, and Matt Monarch, and you would find the raw food world, and you'd find like deer antler and different superfood products. I've not been on one of those sites where there's almost gold and stuff. So Harley kind of made a name for himself making response videos about David Wolf, about a guy called Daniel Vitalis, about a guy called Jonas Wonder Planets, crazy name. All these different alternative diet and raw food diet. Some of them were raw meat diet, some of them were raw vegan diet, raw food diet. And Harley was making response videos. I think that's how he started to really take off at first. And that's kind of what he's continued doing to this day to some degrees, is making like response videos and sort of critiquing people and attacking people. So he made that kind of content. Um, and he was an attractive figure as well because his message was very zero waste, uh, minimalist, obviously vegan. A lot of what he said made sense. It was very clear information. He was a very fit guy. He could obviously make great claims about fitness. He was also not really promoting himself. He was promoting the 80-10-10 diet, the vegan diet. He on his video, I don't know if he still does this, but back then, every video he was promoting other resources. He did promote his own website, but mostly he was saying pcrm.org, he was saying nutritionfacts.org, I think, Dr. McDougall, various vegan websites. Can't remember the guy's name, but he promoted all these different vegan resources, which was pretty amazing, if you look back at that. And I do think he played a big part in a lot of younger people getting involved in the plant-based movement. I think he played a role in that, and freely as well, obviously. But people finding people like Dr. McDougall and Nutrition Facts and PCRM, like a lot of people who later kind of attacked Harley and would use these guys' information against them, probably found those people because of Harley promoting them, right? So he did a great job of educating people and sharing people those kind of resources. And it's interesting to me because I realize that a lot of people coming into this now aren't learning all that stuff necessarily, aren't finding, you know, the plant-based, the proper plant-based information and the vegan information and all that stuff. So he wasn't really trying to sell anything. He would mention the 80-10-10 diet. He would mention Doug Graham. I don't know how responsible Harley was and Freely were for the success of 80-10-10, but I think a lot, I think that they did contribute a lot. I don't know if Doug's ever fully, you know, or if he ever did like really thank them for that, or really knew the impact that they'd had, or really understood it. But there must be millions of views on videos where they were promoting Doug and his book for nothing, for free. And that's that amount of basically free advertising is like so valuable, is so anyway, played a massive role in that. Anyway, so I came across his videos and very quickly I saw he was training in Central Park, and obviously I'd just been in New York, and I was like, wait, is this guy from New York or Central Park? I might have even been in Central Park when this guy was there, because the dates kind of matched up. I was like, because Woodstock had been on, first Woodstock I think was in the end of August or maybe even the start of September 2011, and I'd been in New York around about that time, so I was like, that's weird. I might have walked past these people. I might have been in Central Park at the same time. And I don't know, to this day, I always kind of thought, like, did I somehow get influenced by like their presence, their energy, I don't know, the energy of the Woodstock Festival? I always kind of wondered that. And so I was researched his videos more. I became like a huge fan of Harley. Like Harley was a very, as I say, attractive figure, but charismatic, um, influential figure for a lot of people, and a lot of young people who just looked up to him so much and were following his words like to the letter, like totally to the letter, following his words. And so much so that at that first Woodstock that I went to, so many people were following Harley, his message, his lifestyle, or were trying to, and people were dressing like him. People were, using his terminology and using his words. People were trying to smash like as many bananas in as possible, and that is not the case now, or wasn't hasn't been the case for many years. People were going to sleep early. It was beautiful. I mean, to be honest, it's a beautiful thing, and I'll get to that in a moment. But he was a very influential figure. I was watching his stuff, and obviously he was talking about the Woodstock Festival. I started to look at that stuff and started to look at something, and I was just watched the videos from that, and I was just blown away by it. I was just like, "This is amazing. This is unbelievable." It was like watching a little scene of, like the Garden of Eden on Earth or something like that. It was the people were. I mean, a lot of the people were young, beautiful. But a lot of the older people looked fantastic. Like had great physique, looked strong, fit, were athletic. People were jumping around, bouncing around, exercising, jumping into beautiful lakes, massaging each other, hugging each other, smiling. People were like nearly crying with emotion. And I was just like, this is the most high vibrational thing like I've ever seen. Like this is all these people who are on this diet that I fully believed would kind of evolve people to a higher level anyway. And then you get all of these people together with that same energy all together. And I was like, that must be just amazing. And my heart really called out to go. I just felt such a sense of wanting to be there and wanting to be part of it and wanting to find that tribe and that community. And I watched. I was amazed by it. To this day, I'm still like emotionally, uh, sort of really turned on, I guess, by that festival, by the footage of that festival, and by the film. That I see the first Woodstock Fruit Festival was like a really legendary thing. I never went there, the first one, but I just watched the films of it. I was so inspired. So from there forward, I was really seriously thinking about going to the festival, and I started to, get more into the community and try going raw more and more. And I think I even got to 30 days. Started to follow Harley's information, and it started to make sense, to be honest. Um, because I was crashing out after a few days, and then he was talking about eating more fruit. I didn't accept it. And he would talk about how much fruit to buy and how much to eat, and I like, nah, I just couldn't accept doing it. And eventually I started to do it, started to follow, started to eat loads of bananas, and it started to make sense. And I just thought it was, it was something that was making sense for me in my life. I was like starting to have, dreams about these people, like the Harley and the different influencers. Like I was like going around seeing, I don't know, I was just making connections, um, they were becoming such a big part of my consciousness, right? Such a big part of my internal world, I guess. And then I was really thinking, should I go to Woodstock? And this van, and when I was thinking that, sitting at a bus stop one morning, and a van went by, or a truck that said Woodstock, and I'd never seen this truck before. So random. And it said Woodstock, and I thought, that's a sign. You know, I was very much someone that needed a sign to go and do something. So I saw that, and I was like, that's amazing. I'm going to go. So I bought my ticket, probably not long after that. And there was a forum on their website, and joined that forum on the Woodstock website. It's not really active anymore. And got together with a whole bunch of people, and we were all talking and beforehand, and kind of getting to know each other a little bit on the forum beforehand. And then we decided to put on a fruit luck in Central Park on the night before going up to Woodstock. So we were all going to fly in the night before, as used to be the case. When Woodstock was a bit more international, it was always um, kind of the night before. People would come in from Europe, or a couple of days before, would come in from around the world in Europe, and people would be staying in obviously Manhattan, and people would be staying in the hostels and stuff, and there would usually be a fruit luck in Central Park, and people would often meet up at the Whole Foods at Columbus Circle, go to Central Park, and that was usually a bit of a tradition for a number of years. And I kind of maybe set up or organized some of those, and organized the one that year to some degree. I mean, there was a few of us doing it. So I flew over and was obviously excited to go. Never traveled on my own. And I arrived in JFK Airport and went to the cash machine, and I couldn't get any money out, and my card wouldn't work, and I didn't have any other cash. So I was like, oh, what am I going to do here? I found I had some UK cash, some pound sterling. So I went and got that converted. I think I had $15. That's all I had. Couldn't get access to any of my other money. And I was kind of stuck in the evening. JFK, didn't have any cash. And this fruit luck was going to be going on that I was going to miss, that I'd kind of helped to arrange. And I was so disappointed to miss this. So disappointed. And I was sitting there not knowing what to do, thinking maybe I can pay for like a train into New York, and maybe I'll somehow find my hostel. But I couldn't pay for my hostel. I wouldn't be able to pay. And then I randomly got a phone call or a text message or something from, and I don't even know how it got through to me, but from one of the girls who had been on the website, on the forum, a Turkish girl called Seda. And she said, where are you? How come you didn't turn up at the thing? Now, that was totally random that she had done that. You know, it wasn't like we planned that she would contact me or anything. She just happened to have taken my number, noticed I wasn't there, and she contacted me. And I said, oh, I'm stuck, you know, and I can't get my money out. And Seda and a guy called Sel came to pick me up somewhere. I can't remember. I maybe got the train in somewhere, but they came and picked me up. And it was fairly late, and I said to them, you know, is the fruit luck still on? And Sel went, everyone's went to bed. It's 8:10, you know. So this is what I'm talking about with the influence of Harley at the time. People were going to bed early. People were having tons of carbohydrates. People were exercising. Like, that was the lifestyle, right? Um, it was a great time, to be honest. It was a great group of people. It wasn't these I don't want to call anyone out, but it wasn't like just this whole spiritual airy fairy thing. It was like athletes and quite serious people and stuff. And so I got to the hostel. They actually paid for all this food for me. Seda gave me like a whole bunch of cash that I held on for the week, but I didn't actually need it. But I gave it back. I had to give it back to her or whatever. But she wasn't bothered about it. Sel was a guy living in New York. They were both Turkish. Um, they drove me, picked me up, bought me loads of stuff at Whole Foods, took me to the hostel, and I was just like so grateful. It was completely out of the blue that that happened. And if that hadn't happened, I would have like, I would have probably struggled to find my way to the hostel, and would have maybe struggled to pay for it and stuff. So I was very fortunate. We woke up the next day. A bunch of people from the hostel were going to Woodstock. They were up in the morning. They devoured all the fruit. Like this is what people were like back then as well. It was like if there's a banana, you're eating it. Like everyone was just piling in the bananas, piling in the fruit. Because Harley's message was so like, if you don't eat enough, you're gonna crash. You're gonna fall apart. You're gonna like. It was really kind of an extreme message to some degree, but to some degree true as well. So and we all walked together to find the bus and took the bus to Woodstock. And I was still at this point, I was still like, all of these people are spiritually enlightened, evolved. Like that's how I was viewing the whole uh, scene and the whole group. And I was looking forward to all that. And that week, I just made great friendships with a lot of those people, and many of them I've not seen that much since. I think Seda went back to Woodstock maybe once again, maybe twice, but at least once. Sel never went back to Woodstock. Sel was really cool. I really liked that guy. I think he went. He was kind of involved with the Raw Bros. That's a whole other story. And I think he went away from veganism. I don't know what he's doing now actually, but he was a great guy. Um, and I just met tons and tons of people. And I'm an introvert. Like I'm not that great at speaking to people. But at that event, I met so many people, and it was so many like-minded people. Obviously, I met some of the influencers. I did meet Harley. I spoke with him a little bit. Um, I met Robert Lockhart. I spoke with him. I met a bunch of people from the UK. We became friends and stayed in touch. And a bunch of people from Europe and it was just a life changing time for me, and a place that I could kind of be myself a little bit because I didn't know anyone, so I could experiment, almost like bring out a different part of me. And we were dancing by the campfire and all that kind of stuff, and wild dancing and all that. I loved it, and I love being around Americans. I think that Americans are so kind of just inspirational in themselves, like positive people. Um, and it was just a great time in my life, really. It was such a special thing. It was a great decision, and I went back to that festival like every year after that, up to last year. And it just so quickly became such an important and big thing for me, I think, in my life. I can't really describe it any other way or explain why. But it's always been like a tribe for me, and it's weird. Like I don't have anything really here like that, and that's what I kind of think I need to create. And I'm not talking about the UK Fruit Fest, which is a bit different, but that's UK wide. I mean, here in Glasgow, like in my vicinity, I don't have that, and that's something I really miss. And I that's the only downside I'd say about Woodstock, because I wish it was something that took place in Glasgow and was in all people that lived near each other, and that I was still able to maintain friendships with all those people close by. And but we were all so spread out, and maybe that's one of the attractions for it, that people liked being spread out. I don't really know. But those events, I mean, the education I got the first year, I was really into learning. I went to the classes, and I know a lot of people came because they wanted the people, they wanted to meet girls, they wanted to meet other guys. that was a big part of it. For me, I was going to the classes a lot. I wanted that education. I remember loads of people going to Doug Graham's classes. I remember obviously Harley's classes were popular. Tony Wright, his stuff about the brain, that was popular. I liked going to Robert Lockhart's classes. There was so many different things to do. It was such a unique and special time, and I think people forget that then Woodstock was such a mecca in terms of, like, essentially all of the major influencers at the time that were really um, popping off. I don't know what the word, really trending, were there. And Woodstock isn't that anymore necessarily, and maybe it doesn't need to be. Um, but there's never been anything quite that's matched that. And so what Mike Arnstein did was, legendary and pretty amazing. Bringing together the 80-10-10 community, bringing together uh, others, like obviously Dan the Man being the guy kind of outside of that, Tim Van Orden. And yeah, for it was just it was an incredible, incredible time. And the presenters loved it like as much as anyone else. Like the influencers that were there absolutely loved it. And it was great to be part of that and feel that you were part of this movement that was growing and looking to kind of take on the world. And it was a fantastic, fantastic time. And within a few years, everything kind of changed. But Woodstock always remained a fantastic event to me. Always enjoyed it. I never thought, oh, it was better in the past. It was better when Harley was coming. It was better when Doug Graham was here. I never thought like that. I always enjoyed it in the moment for what it was. I was always so grateful for what it was. So grateful to have that space. And I always thought people never fully valued what they were getting out of this, because people would be like, yeah, I might not come next year. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, what was better than this? What else is going on that you think's better than this? But that was just my way of looking at it. So that's my story of ended up at Woodstock Fruit Festival. That's my story of, to some extent, ended up as a raw vegan, and maybe you'll take something from that and get some inspiration or not. You can subscribe to this channel if you want more. If you want to hear more stories like that, maybe let me know below. And thank you very much for watching.